Are you ready to see how fairy tales about eternal love really end? Michael and Chloe were the couple everyone envied, effortless, inseparable, meant to be. But love has an expiration date when only one person is fighting for it. She wanted to find herself, while he clung to the wreckage of what they once had. She stepped into her baby girl era, convinced she was irreplaceable. But she forgot one thing. Nobody stays desirable forever. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about a man who walked away and made her regret every second she took him for granted. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. My name is Michael. Once, we were the kind of couple people envied, the kind whose connection seemed unshakable, as if fate itself had written our story. Being together felt effortless, as though we had always been meant to find each other. Late-night drives, conversations that stretched until the early hours, we were completely wrapped up in one another. When we got married, it wasn't a leap. It was the natural progression of something that had always felt right. We had grand plans, traveling the world, building a future side by side, and maybe, one day, starting a family. For a time, it seemed as if everything was unfolding just as we had imagined. But life has a way of shifting beneath you when you least expect it. I poured myself into my work, determined to turn my business into something real, something worth the sacrifice. I dedicated countless hours to making it succeed, but never at the expense of Chloe. No matter how busy I was, I made sure she knew she was my priority. I surprised her with little gifts, planned impromptu date nights, and made time just to sit and talk. I wanted her to feel cherished, to understand how much she meant to me. At first, she did. She was proud of me, my greatest supporter, the one who always encouraged me to push forward. But over time, something shifted. It began subtly. She started expressing a need for more space, a desire to focus on her own happiness. I respected that. Everyone needs room to grow. I encouraged her, convinced that it was simply a phase, a normal part of any healthy relationship. But soon, I realized it wasn't about balance or personal growth. It was about her choosing herself over everything else, regardless of what it meant for our marriage. She withdrew. Our plans, our conversations, none of it seemed to matter to her anymore. She stopped asking about my day, barely acknowledged my gestures, yet still expected me to treat her as the center of my world. It felt as if she wanted all the perks of being married, but none of the responsibility that came with it. I told myself it was just a rough patch, something we could work through if I just held on a little longer. So, I did what any devoted husband would. I tried harder. I bit my tongue to avoid fights, pushed aside my frustrations, and doubled down on my efforts to show her love. I bought her thoughtful gifts, things I knew she adored, flowers, perfume, even that designer handbag she had been eyeing for months. I hoped that if she saw how much I still cared, she'd come back to me. But nothing changed. She would offer a half-hearted thank you, a forced smile, then turn back to her phone as if I weren't even in the room. Then she said she needed space, that she had to find herself. I didn't argue. I thought she just needed time to figure things out, so I stepped back, gave her room, let her have her nights out, let her do whatever she felt was necessary. But as the weeks turned into months, it became painfully clear. This wasn't about self-reflection. It was about pulling away. She became someone I barely recognized, acting as if I were nothing more than a background character in her story, someone convenient rather than someone loved. She carried herself as if she had settled for me, as if she deserved something more. And I won't lie, it broke me. Watching the woman I had once built my world around look at me like I was disposable was a pain I could never have prepared for. Loving someone who no longer values you does something to your soul. It makes you question everything, whether you were ever enough, whether they were right to pull away. I spent sleepless nights replaying moments in my head, searching for the instant when it all started to unravel. What had I done wrong? When did I stop being enough? But deep down, I already knew the answer. No matter how much love I gave, I couldn't make someone stay who had already left in their heart. Then came the night that changed everything. I had been waiting for hours, listening to the distant hum of traffic, my eyes locked on the clock. Chloe had stayed out late before, but something about that night felt different. When I finally heard the door creak open, I exhaled slowly, bracing myself. I didn't want another argument. I was too drained for that. She stumbled inside, the sharp scent of alcohol reaching me before I even turned to look at her. She barely acknowledged me, carelessly tossing her bag onto the couch, kicking off her shoes without a thought. I swallowed my frustration. "Chloe, do you even see what you're doing?" My voice was steady, but firm. "This isn't just about coming home late. You're shutting me out. I've been patient, but you're acting like our marriage doesn't even exist." She scoffed, rolling her eyes as if I were being ridiculous. Then, with a careless smirk, she let out a hollow laugh. "Oh, please," she sneered. "You really think I need you? You think you're special? There are plenty of men who want me. If you walk away, I'll replace you tomorrow." Her words landed like a physical blow, but I refused to react. She straightened, her expression hardening with a cold certainty. "I'm done living by your expectations. I'm done living by anyone's expectations," she declared. "This is my life, and no one, not you, not society, is going to dictate how I live it. I'm in my baby girl era now, Michael. Either accept it or don't." And that was it. That was the moment I knew. She was already gone. Or maybe I had finally lost her. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg her to see reason. What would have been the point? She had already decided on the person she wanted to become, and that person was no longer the woman I had once married. So I did the only thing I could. I let her go. I stepped aside so she could pursue the life she was chasing, and I walked away without looking back. The next morning, I searched for the most reputable divorce attorney in town and made the call. I had no interest in dragging things out or making them difficult for her. I wanted a clean break, nothing more. The legal process was swift. Since we had no children and I had no desire to haggle over assets or belongings, the settlement required little effort. Fairness wasn't my concern. I just wanted out. I didn't even bother showing up for the final proceedings. I left everything in the hands of my lawyer, and the moment the papers were signed, I followed through with what I had planned. I vanished. No goodbye texts, no closure conversations, no lingering words left unspoken. I simply disappeared. At first, she didn't seem fazed. If anything, she looked relieved. To her, this was a fresh start, the freedom she had been waiting for. I caught glimpses of her new life through social media, photos of nights out, drinks in hand, captions about rediscovering herself and embracing new beginnings. Independence became her badge of honor. For a while, it appeared as though she had moved on with ease. She threw herself into dating, surrounding herself with admirers who were eager to bask in her charm. But something had shifted. She was no longer the prize she had once believed herself to be. The attention she received wasn't the kind she had expected. The men drawn to her weren't looking for love, just entertainment. And the ones who wanted something serious weren't the kind of men she was interested in. Though I wasn't there to see it firsthand, I heard things. She cycled through relationships, moving from one to the next, never finding anything that lasted. One by one, they all left. What once fueled her, the constant validation, the admiration, began to lose its power. The confidence she had worn so boldly started to fade. For the first time, she found herself truly alone. Not by choice, not as an act of self-discovery, but because she had pushed away the one person who had loved her unconditionally. And I knew this because we still shared mutual friends who kept in touch with her. As for me, I never looked back. After the divorce, I faced a choice. I could have sought solace in a rebound, drowned myself in distractions, or filled the void with fleeting flings. But none of that was the answer. I had spent too much time in a marriage where I felt invisible. So, I chose myself. I poured my energy into my business, channeling my focus into expanding and strengthening what I had built from the ground up. Work became more than just a job. It was proof that I was capable, that my worth wasn't tied to being someone's husband. As time passed, my business flourished beyond my expectations, and for the first time in years, I felt in control of my life again. I prioritized my health, both physically and mentally. I hit the gym, not just for aesthetics, but to feel strong. I paid attention to my diet, my sleep, my overall well-being, things I had neglected for far too long. I came to understand that no matter how much you give, some people will never appreciate it. I refused to settle for anything that didn't add real value to my life. Loneliness wouldn't trick me into going back to what was familiar, nor would it push me into relationships that weren't right. I learned to be alone without feeling lonely. I became comfortable in my own company, a feeling I hadn't known in a long time, and in that space, I thrived. That was my greatest victory. Years passed before I saw Chloe again. It happened unexpectedly, while I was out running errands. I turned a corner in a department store, and suddenly she was there, just a few feet away, holding a shopping bag, staring at me as if she had seen a ghost. For a moment, I barely recognized her. She still looked polished. She had always been meticulous about her appearance, but her eyes held something different now. When they locked onto mine, her voice wavered. "Michael." I nodded, offering a polite smile. "Hey, Chloe, it's been a while." She let out a small, nervous laugh, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Wow, you look different." I shrugged. "Yeah, life's been good." She started asking questions, trying to keep the conversation going. How had I been? What had I been up to? I answered without hesitation, keeping my responses brief, offering nothing beyond the surface. I wasn't cold, but I wasn't giving her what she was searching for either. I had no way of knowing what was running through her mind, but I could sense it. The unspoken words, the weight of time passed. After a few more minutes of small talk, she hesitated before offering an uncertain smile. "Maybe we could catch up sometime?" I returned the smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Yeah, maybe, but we both knew the truth. That chapter of my life had long since closed. Days later, she reached out. It started with a simple message. It began with an unassuming message, one of those casual, "Hey, it was nice bumping into you the other day" texts. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitation creeping in. I knew better than to respond, yet against my own logic, I did. What followed was a slow, deliberate exchange. The conversation never ventured too deep, staying carefully within the boundaries of small talk. A bit of catching up, a bit of nostalgia, patching over the wounds where bitterness had once festered. Over the next few weeks, messages would come sporadically. She'd bring up some random memory that made her think of me, and no matter how much I tried to suppress it, I couldn't deny the reality. The feelings hadn't disappeared. Love doesn't simply evaporate overnight. But I had learned something important. Love alone isn't enough. Trust? That had been shattered long ago. Then one evening she suggested meeting up. Just dinner, just a conversation. A part of me wavered, tempted by the idea. But before I could answer, I finally faced the question I had been evading. What was I truly hoping to find? An apology? A justification? A chance to fix something irreparably broken? No. Deep down, I already knew. I didn't need her to grant me closure. That was something only I could give myself. So I declined. No resentment, no harsh words, just a simple, "I don't think that's a good idea." For a long time, I refused to acknowledge how much I had been hurt. I convinced myself I was fine, that I had moved on. But the truth was undeniable. Chloe had left a deeper mark on me than I wanted to admit. It wasn't just about her leaving. It was about how she had made me feel before she did. Like I was disposable. Like I would never be enough. At first, I tried to drown it out. I poured myself into my work, pushed my body at the gym, filled my time with friends. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, there was always that weight in my chest, a dull ache that never fully went away. And I knew, if I didn't face it, it would seep into every corner of my life. So I did something I never thought I would. I went to therapy. I won't pretend it was easy. Sitting across from a stranger and unraveling years of buried pain felt foreign, almost unnatural. But session by session, the fog began to clear. I started seeing things differently. Loving Chloe hadn't made me foolish. Fighting for my marriage hadn't made me weak. I was just a man who had given his heart to someone who never truly valued it. And that wasn't my failure. It was simply a lesson I needed to learn. Healing didn't happen all at once. It wasn't about waking up one day and feeling whole again. It came in small, quiet victories. So I made a decision. I severed every last tie connecting me to Chloe. No more texts. No more empty conversations. No more wondering about what could have been. Our chapter was closed. Before deleting her number, I sent one final message, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of honesty. I wish you the best. Looking back, I once believed the only way to truly move on from someone who had hurt you was through revenge, to prove that they had lost something irreplaceable. But through it all, I realized something far more valuable. Revenge is meaningless. The best closure isn't found in retaliation, it's found in growth. It's in becoming the best version of yourself and letting them witness it from a distance. And that, my friends, is exactly what I did. This story has come to an end. The lesson here is simple. Appreciate those who truly love you. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. Every day, we either build our relationships or break them. Some realize their mistakes too late, but second chances aren't guaranteed. The one who walks away isn't always the loser. Michael chose himself, while Chloe was left alone because she took his love for granted. So think about it. If you have someone who loves, supports, and believes in you, don't give them a reason to leave. Because one day, you might realize you lost something priceless. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. 10 years of marriage, a thriving business, and a seemingly perfect balance between work and personal life. To their friends, they were the ideal couple. But lurking in the background was a shadow, a man named Jacob. He was always around, always towing the line, always with that smug grin that set off alarms. For years, the husband chose to ignore it. Until one night, curiosity got the best of him, and he decided to check where his wife really was. What he discovered shattered his world. Betrayal, deception, and revenge. How far will he go to reclaim his dignity? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. In both our personal and professional lives, my wife and I are deeply intertwined. We've built a successful small business together, effortlessly balancing our work and home life. Friends often joke about how smoothly we get along, rarely having serious disputes. Despite one lingering issue, our business thrives, our marriage remains strong, and we continue working toward a shared future. For the past 10 years, we've spent nearly every day together. Every so often, my wife would see Jacob, sometimes during birthdays or holidays, other times just sporadically throughout the year. She maintained a friendship with him, something I was fully aware of. I never considered him a threat. especially since she had assured me that their past romance had long since ended. Whenever they met, it was usually for a quick coffee or dinner to catch up. Strangely, I was never included. He made a point to keep these meetings private, not even mentioning them to his own family. However, there were occasions when we all met as couples, or when my wife and I would join him for a meal. During those times, he was cordial, engaging in small talk about business and shared interests. I tolerated him solely because of Melody. It always puzzled me why she kept in touch with someone who had repeatedly betrayed her trust, cheating on her multiple times when they were together. From what she had told me, he treated her terribly, yet she still made excuses for him. He even bailed on plans we had arranged, agreeing to come over for a barbecue, only to cancel at the last minute, something that happened more times than I cared to count. Her unwavering loyalty to him became even more evident after he suffered a severe motorcycle accident. She spent months caring for him, making sure he ate, bathed, and had his home in order. Initially, I tried to overlook it, trusting her judgment, though I strongly disagreed with her devotion to someone who had repeatedly wronged her. She was quick to advise me to cut off friends who disrespected me, yet when I pointed out her hypocrisy regarding Jacob, she had little to say. The man had a reputation as a player, and his behavior hadn't changed. He often shared crude, inappropriate stories, especially in Melody's presence. She would dismiss it with a laugh, saying, "That's just Jacob." But I couldn't ignore it. Then, one day, I saw his name pop up on her phone while it rested on the coffee table. The message he sent was beyond inappropriate, explicitly sexual. He had essentially invited her to join him and a woman he occasionally slept with. I was stunned. I confronted her immediately, making it clear that his behavior was completely unacceptable. She reassured me that she would address it with him and that it wouldn't happen again. She brushed it off, claiming it was just Jacob's usual behavior, harmless and meaningless. I dismissed it as sleazy, but a few months later, I came across another similar message. This time, I couldn't ignore the sick feeling in my gut. When she fell asleep, I went through her messages. What I found left me furious. More inappropriate jokes, more messages where he insulted me behind my back in moments of frustration. I woke her up, went through the texts with her, and made my stance crystal clear. If this continued, she would have to cut him out of her life completely. I told her plainly that his behavior was not only disrespectful to me, but to our marriage. No real friend would speak to a married woman like that. After that confrontation, she distanced herself from him for a few months. Eventually, a year passed, and she convinced me to allow their friendship again. Maybe it was because he needed real estate advice and we worked in that industry, or maybe I was just too exhausted to keep fighting about it. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him for coffee with Melody. At first, everything seemed fine. Yet, I never fully let my guard down. I kept checking their messages, and sure enough, I found more inappropriate remarks from him. That was my breaking point. I gave her an ultimatum. This was it. If it happened again, I was done. She defended him yet again, insisting that was just his sense of humor and that she never took it seriously. I didn't care. I don't care if it's his idea of a joke. I won't tolerate another man speaking to my wife that way. She promised to keep their conversations strictly professional and assured me that their dynamic would change. A year passed, and somehow I found myself back in the same position. I had let their occasional meetings continue, despite my resentment. It remained the only real point of contention in our otherwise happy marriage. I despised him, but I loved her, so I tolerated it. I told myself that, since they only saw each other every few months, it wasn't worth throwing everything away. But then, in the last few months, things started shifting. Their communication became more frequent. Every time he called, her voice changed. She laughed more at his texts, spent more time glued to her phone, and found excuses to leave the house. We had always shared our locations with each other, a decision she pushed for after I came home late a few times from hockey, which made her anxious. I had nothing to hide, so I agreed. But when Jacob moved back to a nearby city for work, I started checking her location more often. One evening, she seemed nervous as she told me she was heading to a friend's house to help organize her closet. From the very beginning, I knew organization wasn't her strong suit, so when she insisted she was in a particular place, I had my reservations. I wanted to trust that she wasn't with Jacob, but something in my gut told me otherwise. When I checked her location, it showed an unfamiliar address. Curiosity got the best of me, so I called to see what she was up to. Her voice had an uneasy edge to it. She claimed she was at a friend's house. "Which friend?" I asked. A brief pause, then she said, "Kimberly." That didn't sit right. "Isn't Kimberly on the south side?" I questioned further. She confirmed but seemed irritated, asking why it even mattered. But I knew exactly where Kimberly lived, and it wasn't where my phone was telling me she was. "Say hi to Jacob for me," I said, cutting her off before she could spin another lie. I hung up. She called back almost instantly, but I let it ring. When she got home later, the weight of her deceit must have hit her all at once. She was frantic, overwhelmed. Her anxiety boiled over until she was physically sick. It wasn't long before we found ourselves in an explosive argument. I told her I was done. As I packed my things, she crumpled onto the floor, gasping between dry heaves. We had a crucial business meeting the next morning with one of our biggest clients, but I made it clear she wasn't welcome. If she showed up, I'd have her escorted out. When I left the next morning, she was still in the same spot, sobbing at my feet. She never came to the office, but my thoughts never left her. Even in that high-stakes meeting, I was somewhere else entirely, my mind tangled in doubt and suspicion. She kept messaging me all day, apologizing for lying but swearing up and down that nothing happened with Jacob. She insisted she only kept it from me to avoid a fight, knowing I wouldn't be okay with her going to his place. According to her, he just needed help unpacking. I tried to push my emotions aside, to be rational about it. But I couldn't stop thinking about Jacob, how he had always been lurking on the edges of our relationship. The comparison gnawed at me. He was wealthy, effortlessly charming, always put together. And no matter how much success I had, I couldn't match him in that way. Had he always been more than just a friend to her? Even in our most intimate moments, that question haunted me. I tried to push it away, but it stayed. The truth was undeniable. I didn't trust her with him. That night, I stayed at work late and told her not to come in the next day. I needed space. The past few days had turned me into someone I didn't recognize, obsessively checking her location, wondering if I was the one overreacting. Was I making this worse in my head? Or was my gut telling me the truth all along? The following day, before heading home, I checked her location again. She was at the house. Without warning her, I decided to go back and talk. When I arrived, her car was in the driveway, her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, but she was gone. I thought maybe she had stepped out for a walk. So I waited. Minutes stretched into an hour, and something felt off. Her purse was missing, but her sneakers were untouched. The keys she would have used to lock the door were gone. She hadn't walked anywhere. Someone had picked her up, and she had intentionally left her phone behind so I wouldn't be able to track her. A sickening certainty gripped me. Jacob's address flashed in my mind. Before heading back to the office, I took a detour. Parking a short distance away, I approached his house just to confirm what I already knew. As I got closer, I saw a large bay window. Through the glass, I saw them. She was curled into him, arms slung around his shoulders, lips pressed against his. My body went cold. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. In that instant, every lie unraveled. I reached for my phone and started recording. They were too caught up in each other to notice, at least until I pounded on the window. They jerked apart, eyes wide with shock and guilt. I smirked. Smile for the camera. On the drive back to the office, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? It couldn't have been just once or twice. The secret messages, the strange behavior, She wanted me to believe this was nothing more than a brief moment of weakness. We were adults. Who just makes out anymore? Even if that were the case, it didn't erase the fact that I had voiced my discomfort with their so-called friendship for years. She had always brushed off my concerns, swearing I had nothing to worry about. She knew this would hurt me. Even her own family and friends had warned her about Jacob, knowing his history. And yet, she did this anyway. Had anything between us ever been real? Did she ever love me? I blamed myself too. I should have walked away the first time I saw the warning signs. But I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to trust that Jacob was just a boundary-pushing friend. The truth was, he had never seen me as competition. He knew exactly what he was doing. Had she ever truly moved on from him? Maybe she convinced herself their bond was harmless, but deep down, she had been waiting for his attention all along. Has anyone else been through this? What do I do now? I hate that I even have to share this. I don't want our mutual friends to find out. Update. 3 months have passed. I've spoken to a divorce attorney. Untangling our marriage has been complicated, especially with the business we co-own. It's been a disaster, but there's no turning back now. For weeks after sending her the official notice, I was a mess of anxiety. She fought back at every turn, disputing my claims and even filing a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. But the facts were irrefutable. I had all the proof, and she knew it. I had to meticulously compile every text, every photo, every video, anything that could substantiate my case. It was an exhausting process, but there was no other choice. The irony of it all? She was the one who had violated the very agreement we had signed when we decided to build a business together. Melody received formal notice that she had breached our partnership contract due to her infidelity. The letter outlined the specific clause she had broken and the consequences that followed. Effective immediately, her role as co-owner and business partner was terminated. Choices have repercussions, and she should have thought twice before making hers, especially with Jacob. With her exit, the business was now solely mine. As for our home, she never had any legal claim to it. It was purchased under my name, with my father co-signing the mortgage. After spending some time at her cousin's house, she ultimately moved in with Jacob. Conversations with mutual friends only confirmed what I had dreaded for so long. Their accounts painted a picture that, deep down, I had always suspected but had refused to fully acknowledge. She had never truly let go of Jacob. She mentioned him so frequently that even our friends took notice. Rosalie, one of those friends, later admitted she had once warned Melody that if she brought him up one more time, she would tell me everything. Rosalie apologized for not speaking up sooner, but by the time she did, it didn't even matter. I had already begun therapy to unpack the emotional wreckage, working through my own blind spots and forgiving myself for missing all the signs. New friendships and hobbies became my solace, helping me slowly rediscover who I was. Strangely enough, I felt an odd sense of relief. The weight of suspicion and doubt had burdened me for so long, and now, with undeniable proof, I finally had closure. Some of her friends were completely blindsided by the truth, having assumed that our relationship was picture perfect. It's remarkable how unaware people can be of what's really going on behind closed doors. Now, 10 months after filing for divorce, the business is officially mine. The uncertainty that had once clouded my future has vanished. Recently, Cyrus mentioned that Melody had reached out, desperate for a place to stay. Turns out Jacob had been cheating on her all along. The irony is almost poetic. She packed her things and moved back in with her cousin. With no stable income, she's trying to start her own business from the ground up, but since I retained all our clients, she's essentially starting from scratch. Looking back, I see now that I was the engine behind our business success. The structure, the vision, the execution, it was all me. As I rebuild my life, I can't help but ask myself, what was it about me that made me so blind to the truth of our relationship? It's a sobering realization. It's difficult to come to terms with the fact that I misjudged someone I once loved so deeply. Despite everything, my friends have been a lifeline. Some were stunned by the revelations, but they've stood by me, offering their support, whether by lending a hand with the business or simply being there when I needed them most. I can't put into words how much that means to me. Following their advice, I've cautiously stepped back into the dating world. At first, it was daunting, but meeting new people has reminded me that there's more to life than dwelling on the past. I've gone on a few dates, some good, some not so much, but each one has taught me more about what I truly want in a partner. There's someone new in my life now. She's amazing, but we're taking things slow, just enjoying the process of getting to know each other. Life moves forward. What I've learned about trust and communication is now non-negotiable in any future relationship. I won't settle for anything less than what I deserve. This journey has been painful, but I've emerged stronger, wiser. The future feels bright, and I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next. And in the ultimate twist of fate, Melody finds herself right back where she started, single, after her chaotic whirlwind with Jacob imploded. It's almost laughable. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. This story has come to an end. Life always gives us signs, but are we willing to see them? Too often, we justify others' actions, fear the truth, and cling to illusions. But trust is not something that can be half-hearted. It either exists or it doesn't. Love should not be built on doubt, pain, and the constant fear of betrayal. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries or value you, they're not worth fighting for alone. Sometimes, walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of a better, more fulfilling life. Take care of yourself, respect yourself, and remember, the best is yet to come, but only if you're ready to leave the past behind. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He was waiting for her. Seconds felt like an eternity. She said, "I'll be just a minute," and then vanished. The whole apartment was screaming her name, her favorite dress, the wine, the candles. But she was gone. And then came that message, the one that shattered his entire world. How do you survive betrayal when you've given everything to love? What do you do when forever turns into never? This story hits like a punch to the heart, but the worst part is still ahead. You'll want to know how it all ends. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now let's get started. Joshua lingered by the window, his hands restless as his gaze cut through the inky darkness outside. Tonight was meant to be perfect. He had planned everything down to the smallest detail, an intimate anniversary dinner just for the two of them. The table was carefully set with her favorite meals, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows across the room, and a bottle of wine stood untouched, waiting for the right moment. Even her beloved dress, the one that never failed to light up her face, was laid out for her. But something had gone wrong. The air in the apartment had grown thick with silence, stretching unbearably with each second that passed. Riley had excused herself briefly, claiming she'd only be a moment in the bathroom. That was 15 minutes ago. A knot tightened in Joshua's stomach as he checked his watch. He called her name, expecting her to emerge with a playful jab at his impatience, but the only response was the hollow quiet of the apartment. A chill crept down his spine. He hesitated, staring at the bathroom door, his pulse quickening with an unshakable sense of unease. Maybe she had simply lost track of time. Maybe. But deep inside, he knew something was off. His heart pounded as he reached for the doorknob, his grip uncertain. He pushed the door open, bracing himself for the sight of her, but the room was empty. A wave of confusion hit him like a crashing tide. Where was she? Then, a faint noise from the living room yanked him out of his spiraling thoughts. His phone vibrated. He snatched it up and read the message from Danny, an old friend. The words on the screen sent his world shattering into pieces. "Joshua, I hate to be the one to say this, but Riley's not coming back tonight. She's with Noah." The words struck him like a hammer blow. Noah Mitchell, the golden boy. The man who had everything, wealth, status, charisma, and now he had Riley. Joshua's legs nearly gave out beneath him. No, this couldn't be real. She wouldn't do this. His mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. Had he been blind to the warning signs? When had things begun to unravel? The realization pressed down on him, suffocating. How could she betray him like this? His eyes stayed locked on the message, his body frozen in place. Why hadn't she told him? Why had she chosen to leave like this? His breath grew shallow and his vision blurred. Anger surged through him, hot and raw. With a sudden, violent motion, he hurled his phone against the counter. She was gone. She had chosen to walk away. He dialed her number, his fingers shaking. The phone rang and rang. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. No answer, no explanation, just an unbearable silence that echoed through the apartment, louder than any scream. The silence spoke volumes. It spoke of deception, of choices made without him, of love that had slipped through his fingers without warning. He no longer knew where she was, and worse, he no longer knew where he stood. His breath came in shallow, uneven bursts as he grabbed his coat, his movements mechanical, his mind drowning in the weight of what had just unraveled. He needed answers, no matter how much they hurt. He couldn't just sit here, swallowed by the stillness of the home they had built together. Stumbling out the door, the cold night air wrapped around him, but it did nothing to numb the chaos churning inside him. Riley wouldn't just vanish, not after everything they had shared. But Noah was different. Noah was the kind of man who made things happen, who took what he wanted without hesitation. And now, he had taken her. Joshua had always been the steady one, working his 9 to 5, coming home to his wife, trying his best to keep their life together. Now, that life was unraveling before his eyes. The deafening quiet of the apartment had been replaced by a relentless ringing in his ears. The world around him blurred, distant and surreal, as though he were merely an observer watching his own downfall unfold. He had no destination, no plan. His feet moved out of instinct, but his mind remained trapped in the moment when Danny's message had turned his reality inside out. How had they come to this? Their love had once been effortless, natural, something that didn't require second-guessing. He could still picture the way she had looked at him when they first met, the brightness in her eyes, the way she laughed without restraint, the endless conversations that flowed as if they had known each other forever. He had never envisioned a day when she would simply disappear. Yet here he was, standing at the ruins of their love, watching it crumble before him. When had it all shifted? She had changed, and so had he. Life had thrown responsibilities at them, one after another, until they had become weighed down by the sheer pressure of it all. There had been a time when every detail of their day had been shared, when the smallest touches and glances carried meaning. But that time had slipped away, gradually, then all at once. Joshua had allowed himself to get lost in the routine, in the grind of everyday life. He had overlooked the subtle cries for attention, the moments when she had reached out, hoping he would notice. And now, it was too late. Now, he was alone, left to face the wreckage of what he had failed to see. His stomach twisted at the thought of Noah, the man who had everything, the man who had just taken the one thing Joshua had never thought he would lose. Joshua had never questioned Riley's devotion, at least not until now. For as long as he could remember, she had always been his, returning to him at the end of each day. But suddenly, An uneasy suspicion took root in his mind. Had Riley found in Noah something she hadn't realized she was missing? Was he everything Joshua wasn't? Was he the kind of man who could take her away? His phone vibrated in his hand. A message from Riley. Joshua, I'm sorry. Hurting you was never my intention. I just needed tonight. I needed to feel alive again. That last word hit him like a punch to the gut. Alive. What was she trying to say? That being with Noah made her feel something he no longer could? His fingers tightened around the phone, his pulse hammering. For a moment he was tempted to hurl the device into the street, to rid himself of the message as if that would erase its meaning. But instead, he forced himself to respond, his hands shaking as he typed. You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk away and then say sorry. It doesn't work that way. He hit send and shoved the phone into his pocket, his chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. The city stretched before him, lights flickering in the distance, but they seemed duller somehow, like stars on the verge of burning out. He had no clear direction, no sense of where to go, only the certainty that he couldn't stay here. Not while his world was crumbling around him. It felt unreal, like he was trapped in a dream he couldn't shake himself awake from. His mind looped through the same painful realization. The woman he had promised forever to had chosen to spend the night with someone else. And there was nothing he could do about it. His phone buzzed again. This time, a call from Danny. Joshua hesitated before answering. Joshua. Danny's voice was steady but urgent. I know this hurts, but listen to me. Riley didn't mean for this to happen. Joshua's stomach twisted into a knot. She's confused, Danny continued. And Noah, he has this way of making people feel like they matter. Just give her some time to figure things out. Joshua shook his head, even though Danny couldn't see him. Time? He repeated bitterly. She already made her choice, Danny. She's with him right now, not me. How do I come back from that? Joshua, Stop. Joshua cut him off, his voice tight with frustration. Don't make excuses for her, or for him. Right now, they're together, and I'm standing here wondering what happened to my wife. Without another word, he ended the call. His hands trembled as he shoved the phone back into his pocket, his emotions threatening to drown him. The cold night air wrapped around him, but it wasn't enough to numb the ache in his chest, the deep, hollow pain of knowing he had lost something vital, something he had taken for granted. And in that moment, he understood. He wasn't just angry, he wasn't just heartbroken, he was terrified. Terrified of what came next. Terrified of the unknown. Would Riley return? Would she even want to? Or had Noah, effortless, charming Noah, already won? Joshua stood motionless, staring at the distant glow of the city as his thoughts stormed within him. The air carried a bitter chill, but the shiver running through him had little to do with the temperature. It was the realization settling deep into his bones, that everything was unraveling and he was powerless to stop it. His mind drifted backward, replaying the last few months in excruciating detail. All the moments he had ignored, the subtle ways Riley had withdrawn, the way her laughter had faded, her touch had become less frequent, signs he had missed, warnings he had brushed aside in the rush of daily life. He had believed they were unshakable. He had been wrong. Now all that remained was the wreckage, and he was left sifting through the pieces, trying to understand where it had all gone wrong. His phone screen still glowed with Riley's message. I just needed tonight to feel alive again. He kept rereading those words, searching for some explanation, some way to make sense of them. Had he truly been so absent? So disconnected that she had to turn to someone else just to feel something again? His thoughts shifted to Noah, the golden boy, the magnetic presence, the kind of man who drew people in effortlessly. Joshua had always prided himself on being the steady one, the reliable one. But somewhere along the way, that hadn't been enough for Riley. Predictability had lost its charm. She had wanted something else, something wild, something untamed, and he had been too blind to see it until it was too late. A fresh wave of frustration burned through him. This wasn't something that had happened overnight. It had been unraveling for months, maybe even longer, and he had let it happen, oblivious, convinced that their love was indestructible. But it wasn't. Nothing was. And now he wasn't even sure if Riley wanted to fix it. His phone vibrated again. Riley's name filled the screen, but this time he felt no rush of hope, only a sinking certainty. With a deep breath, he answered, his pulse pounding, not with anticipation, but with something far worse. A suffocating weight hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and shattered trust. Joshua. Riley's voice wavered, barely more than a whisper. I know you're angry. I know you're in pain. But I never wanted to hurt you. I swear. Her words did nothing to ease the storm inside him. If anything, they stoked the fire. You didn't mean to hurt me, he echoed, disbelief laced in every syllable. Riley, you've been tearing me apart for months, and I was too blind to see it. You've been slipping away, and I just stood there, pretending everything was fine. A hollow, bitter laugh escaped him, heavy with the weight of realization. How did we end up like this? How did I miss all the signs? Please, Joshua, just listen. No. The word cut through the space between them, sharper than he intended, but he didn't care. He had listened, again and again, waiting for things to change, hoping for something real, but nothing had. You made your choice, Riley, and I refuse to be your backup plan. She parted her lips to respond, but he stopped her before she could even begin. No. You don't get to walk away and then turn around like nothing happened. You don't get to leave me in the dark and expect me to be here when you decide you're ready. Silence stretched between them, the static on the line the only sound. Then, a shaky breath, a quiet sob. A part of him ached to reach for her, to soften just enough to take away the pain. But the betrayal was too much. It burned, consuming everything else until there was nothing left but anger and grief. I don't even know what to say, she admitted, her voice barely holding together. I wasn't thinking, Joshua. I never wanted this. I never planned for it. Her voice cracked, then softened to something almost fragile. But Noah. He made me feel seen, like I mattered. Her confession struck like a knife to the gut. His hands curled into fists as a sharp wave of frustration crashed over him. And I didn't? His voice shook, but he refused to stop. I was here, Riley. I was building a life with you, trying to give us everything we dreamed of. And you threw it all away. For what? A fleeting thrill? A temporary escape? She sniffled, her sorrow a quiet tremor over the line. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But Joshua had already stopped listening. He realized in that moment that no amount of apologies or explanations could undo what had been done. She had made her choice, and now all that remained were the ruins. I don't think I can forgive you, he admitted, the words tasting like ash. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way. Another stretch of silence. He could hear her muffled sobs, but they no longer reached him. He had built a wall around himself, high, impenetrable, and he had no strength left to break it down. Not for her. Not anymore. I don't want this to be the end, Joshua. Her desperation clung to every word. Please, I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance. Let me fix this. For a fleeting moment, he wanted to believe her, wanted to convince himself that love was enough to piece them back together. But deep down, he knew better. Trust, once shattered, rarely mended, and without it, what was left? His chest tightened as he forced out the words. I'm done, Riley. His voice was steady now, distant, cold. You can't fix this. Not anymore. Before she could respond, he ended the call. The finality of it hit him hard, knocking the breath from his lungs. And yet, beneath the devastation, something else stirred: relief. He had no idea what came next, no clear path forward. But one thing was certain: he couldn't stay in the wreckage of their love any longer. It was time to move on, to rebuild somehow. The pain wouldn't vanish overnight. He knew that. But somewhere beneath the heartbreak, he understood one undeniable truth. Leaving was the only way to find himself again. And that, above everything else, was the hardest part of all. This story has come to an end. Sometimes we get so caught up in daily life that we stop noticing the people beside us. Love is not just about beautiful moments. It's about effort, attention, and care. Betrayal rarely happens out of nowhere. It grows from silence and neglect. This story reminds us all: if someone matters to you, don't forget to show it every day. Don't wait until it's too late. Learn to speak, to listen, to forgive. Because love doesn't die from fights, it dies from silence. Cherish each other, because losing someone is easy, but getting them back is almost impossible. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.